Hi everyone, welcome to our garden gnome tutorial where you get to make these 3 cuties plus some little mushrooms. So in your kits you should have these 3 template mats, as well as your clay, your wire, your clay tools, some super glue for those little repairs, and you'll also need to grab yourself some wipes or a chucks or something like that to wipe your hands in between. So to begin with, we're going to start with our baby gnome. You can see there's a section for a baby gnome, Mr. Gnome, the mushrooms, and let's begin. So you're going to be grabbing, we talk about our clay in eighths, so you're going to be using 3/8 of the beige and 2/8 of the red. And you're simply just going to be starting off with your body. So rolling it up into a ball, and purely just holding it up against your body base. So at the moment we're just going through and dispersing all of our clay, making sure there's the correct measurements for each before we finalize our body parts. And then we're doing the little nose. Our 2 ears. And to do your arms, you want to roll it out into a snake, and then you're going to be chopping that in half with your clay tool to create your 2 little arms, bending them into 2 L shapes, like so. And finally, we're going to be doing the feet. I thought that was the case. There wasn't quite enough clay left over, so we've had to grab some from our body base. We're rolling our 2 balls for the bottoms of our feet. And again, I think, yes, didn't quite have enough clay, so we're just grabbing it from each. If you do notice that you've run out of clay, there should definitely be enough. It's just a matter of evenly ratioing it out for everything, or rationing it out, sorry. Now we hope that the template mat does help in regards to getting your body parts correct. Certainly helps me. Alrighty, now any leftover clay, I'm just going to add that to my head and roll it up into a nice sphere shape. Awesome, now we're ready to start making our body. So you can see here, I'm just going to roll it on a slightly angled motion, and this ensures it creates a little bit of a sort of like a cone shape that you can see on our body side view template here. Want it to be nice and wider on the bottom and skinnier at the top. And lining it up against your template to make sure it's the correct size. Awesome. Now we're going to do our head, and that's pretty simple. It's just a matter of slightly rolling it sideways a little bit to create a slightly oval shape. You don't want it to be perfectly circle, you want it to be slightly oval, and it's the same case with the nose. Doing a couple of side rolls, make it a little bit more egg shaped. And now the ears, it's just a matter of squishing those down so they're nice and flat. And then you're pressing all your little toes onto your feet. There should be 4 toes per foot. Alright, now we're going to assemble it all together, and this is sped up a little bit, and it's pretty easy. Just popping the head directly on top of your body, grabbing your little clay tool. You're going to be combining oh no, sorry, no clay tools. We're just going to be smudging our little nose on, popping our ears in place, ensuring your legs are lined up with the middle of your nose and they're popping out evenly like a little V, and your arms pop on behind the feet. So I'm going to zoom in so you can see a bit more detail. This is what I was talking about to begin with. You've got to smear the body and the head together to create, to combine it as one. This ensures your little head's not going to fall off during the cooking process. And it's the same with your arms. So you're going to smear behind your arms and behind your ears just to ensure that they don't fall off once they're cooking. And of course, all of that messy stuff from behind, that'll be covered up with our little red hat. So you don't need to worry about that. So just like before, we're rolling our red up into a ball. I like to start everything in ball form. Make it nice and warm. And then we're going to be doing our side roll to create that cone shape. And this time we're going right up into a point, squishing it down so it's nice and flat. And now you can see that I'm using my finger to create a bit of an indentation in our hat, and as I'm using my finger, I'm pulling it and stretching that clay outwards, so you can see it's getting bigger and bigger slowly. And you just smooth it out, you keep stretching it, and it should be rather close to the size of the finished hat on your template mats. You don't really want it to be too much bigger or too much smaller, because that will throw out the proportions of your gnome and your hat. But of course, it's all about personal preference. It's looking pretty good to me. I'm going to give your hands a good wipe, get that red off your hands, otherwise you will get red on your little gnome. Moving on, you're going to be popping your hat on. So you can see here I'm holding it down the bottom whilst I gently apply pressure on the top of my hat. This ensures that it's attached to the head properly and it's not going to fall off. You want to apply a decent amount of pressure and we're good to go. So moving on, we're going to be doing Mr. Gnome, and this one's a very similar process to Baby Gnome. You can see the hat's almost exactly the same. We're going to be starting off with our blue for our body and our arms. For the arms, it's just a matter of rolling it into a ball and then rolling it out into a little snake, nice and flat. And you'll be cutting these little bits to create your arms. Awesome. Now the rest of it is all going to be used for our body. So rolling it up into a ball, and then creating your slight cone shape. So you can see as I'm rolling it, it's creating that angled effect. And you don't want it to be a proper point at the top. You want to have a nice flat top to it. Now you're going to be grabbing 2 little balls for your little hands, and then rolling up a little bit for our nose again. Similar thing to before, you want it to be oval shaped, not perfect and circular. And then we're using the rest for our head. This one's a bit easier to distribute. Prettying it a little so it's slightly oval in shape. Sweet, that looks good to me. Moving on, I'm going to be doing the beard. Now I've given you a lot of white here, probably a bit too much, but it's always better to have more than less. You're going to start off with your little mustache. You can see that I'm rolling it, but sort of prettying it and pointing it at the ends, so you create that kind of mustache effect. Just like that. And the rest of it, you're going to be rolling it up into a little ball and then just squishing it onto your template mat. Now you do want to try and ensure that your beard isn't any bigger than the one that's on the template mat. This just ensures that it's not going to be dragging on the ground and it's not too big for your gnome's body. Awesome, that looks pretty good. Now we're going to go up a bit closer and show you how to assemble your arms. You can see here I've just rolled the little balls slightly so they've got that oval shape again, and then you're just simply pushing it onto your arms. And then for the beard, you're just popping your mustache on top of your beard like so, smoothing out. And then for the head and the body, you're going to be doing the same thing that was we did for the little baby gnome. Popping the head on and smearing just one of those sides. That will be the one that's covered with the hat. Smoothing it out, make sure it's not going to fall off. And you can already see, oh, so it's actually pretty good and close with the template mat, but he's still a bit too long. I'm just going to trim that beard down so it's not dragging on the ground. And I'm just pushing it in place. It's time to do the details. So you can see here, I'm just scratching all the way out to create that hairy beard effect. I'm going to go crazy with this one, it's fun. Alright, the beard is done. Time to assemble the nose and the arms. So it's a similar thing as baby gnome, you're just popping it on, doing a little bit of smoothing to make sure the arms and nose don't fall off. And then we're going to be doing our hat again. So same as before, rolling up into a ball, making it nice and soft and easy to work with. And then you're going to be rolling on that sideways diagonal motion to create that perfect point and cone shape. And then using your thumb and index fingers to pull your hat out to create that nice big brim. Awesome, smoothing it out. You can get crazy with this one, you can make the nice and pointy, a curl, a twirl, whatever sort of crazy hat you'd always want to come up with. I'm going to twist my little top, give it a bit of personality, and then you're going to really apply that pressure to the top of the head, make sure it's fully attached. It's not going to fall off. Awesome. We're 2 down, 1 gnome to go. This time we're on to a lady gnome. The lady gnome is definitely the most challenging of all of them. She's got a lot more detail than the other two. So starting off, I like to begin with my little shoulder ruffles. I'm going to be rolling up 2 little balls of the same size for that section. And you'll also be using your light pink for your lovely dress, your shoes, and also you can see there's a little pretty light pink flower that goes on top of her hat. So for now we're just going through and distributing all the clay, rolling the little balls, rolling little ovals. Oh, I just did a bit of adjusting. I noticed that one of the shoulder ruffles weren't quite the proper size, so I've made some adjustments to those, fix them up. So I'm just going to pop, you can see I popped a little bit of the pink clay aside for the flower to do at the end, and the rest of it I'm going to be using for my dress. And the same thing as the other two gnomes, you're rolling it on that angled sideways motion to create the cone shape. But this time you're actually going to be dragging out the bottom of a dress a little bit more, creating sort of a ruffly effect. So I'm doing a bit more kneading. You can see here I'm starting to draw out those bottom bits to make it look like it's a lovely flowy dress that's sitting alongside her. Just like so. Awesome. Now I'm going to pop our little shoulder ruffles on either side. That's just a matter of popping them there and applying that pressure. If they do fall off during the cooking process, you can super glue them back on after. And now we're doing our body parts. So at the moment I'm just rolling out the legs. Want to ensure they're not too skinny. They'll definitely break during the cooking process, ensuring that they're the same thickness that we've got on our template mats here. And now we're going to be doing our little arms. So also a similar thing to our baby gnome. When we made our little arms and Mr. Gnome, his little arms too. But it's just a matter of rolling out the beige clay, popping it on the spot, and then using that little L shape to create the ideal shape that we're after to hold our little flower. We've just done our dainty little nose, it's finished, and we're going to be using the rest of our clay for the head. Same as before, rolling it up into a ball, making it slightly oval. Wonderful. Now we're going to be doing the detail of these little feet. So you can see I've tried to use just one of my fingers to create that little divot at one of these sides, so it gives that kind of like a Barbie doll shoe effect. And then grabbing your little leg, you're going to pop it in that little divot that you've created. And then you're just very gently blending the clay together to create the leg and the foot as one. Legs and feet are done. It's time to start assembling our body pieces. So I've just attached our head to our body, popping our dainty little nose on. I think I just realized that the arms were a little bit too long, so if that does happen, it's just a matter of trimming it, no problemo. The arms can be as long or as short as you'd like. She's looking and sweet. So the legs, you really do want to ensure that there's a good amount of the leg up underneath your gnome. This will ensure that it has that good structure and the legs aren't going to snap off easily during the cooking process. So I've popped them on and I'm really applying that pressure onto my gnome so the bottom of the legs are nice and flat, and of course that they blend with the pink clay nicely. Beautiful. Now we're going to be moving on and doing the little flowers. This is rather easy, it's just a matter of being patient because they can be a little bit dainty. So you want to just roll 5 of the ballerina clay balls out, and then you're going to be doing the exact same thing with your hot pink clay. So you'll be making 2 little flowers, a hot pink one and a ballerina coloured one. Now we're going to be rolling out little balls for our bits of hair. So I start off by just rolling lots and lots of little balls, and then from there I'll progress to rolling those balls out into some nice long strands of hair. Similar shape and size to the ones that you can see on your template mat. Now let's have a look at how we go about rolling out our little strands of hair. So very similar to techniques we've been using in the past. You're going to be rolling it, but you're kind of going to be rolling it on a bit of an angle, so it creates that thicker to thinner effect. So it's not just a, same thickness snake type thing. You're going to have a nice pointed end. Now it's time to start making our lady gnome nice and pretty. So you don't really need to worry about putting much hair on top of her head because that's where our hat's going to be. It's all about giving that illusion that she has a lovely, thick, long locks of hair. So just roughly chucking them all in place. And you'll probably find that once you start placing them, you might need to get more, take some off. It's all a matter of sort of adjusting to your personal preference. And once I've got them all stuck, you'll see the next step will be me going through and curling all those ends up, making it look pretty. then finally I'm going through and just prettying up all the little ends, curling them up, making it sit in a nice way. And you can see I've gone through and I've added some of those shorter bits around the tops and around the fronts of her face to give it that sort of layerage effect. Alright, so I'm just adding a couple more strands. It wasn't quite full enough for my liking. There's a few bald patches. And just like our other gnomes, it's time to do our hat. So with Mrs. Gnome, you can see she's got a lovely hot pink hat. And it's the same thing, you just want to roll it up into a ball and then progress to rolling it into a cone. Then using your thumb and index fingers to pull your hat out, create that divot for where the head's gonna sit. Now with Lady Gnome, you actually do want to drag it out a bit more than you did with the other two. You can see that on her hat she's got a few more ruffles than the other two. Sort of looks a bit more floppy, a bit more dainty, a bit more ladylike, as you would. That's looking pretty good. Time to pop it on our Miss Lady Gnome's head. So you can see here I'm doing the same as before, applying that pressure, but I'm just strategically moving the clay, trying to mold it so it looks like it's got a few more floppy edges to it than the other guys. Makes it look a little bit more ladylike. Really ensuring it's pushed down nice and firm, especially on the back of your head there. Oh, lovely. Now it's time to do her little flowers. So starting off, we're just going to do the flower on her hat. That's just a matter of grabbing your little balls of light pink clay and popping them in like a flower, and then finishing it off with your little yellow spot for the center. Cute. Now we're going to be doing our flower that she'll be holding, and this will just be the same thing, except you're going to be putting all of your little hot pink balls onto your brown stick. Popping the little yellow center, And then finishing it off with, just to give it a little trim, finishing it off with our little leaves. Beautiful. And pushing it in so it doesn't fall out of place. And that's Miss Lady Gnome done. You really want to ensure those feet are nice and attached to the bottom so they don't break off during the cooking process. And our final thing that we're going to be moving on to is our mushrooms. So give your hands a good wipe before moving on to the the white clay. And we've given you enough to make 3 mushrooms, but if you wanted, you could trim your wire up and make more. You can make a big one, little one, whatever you want. This is just a basic idea as to how you go about making mushrooms. So you can see I'm rolling it with my 2 fingers to create that little divot on the inside, so it's not quite cone shape, it's not quite square. It's got a little bit of that bubble effect happening. So again, using my 2 fingers to roll it. And those are the bases of our mushrooms done. Now you're going to be rolling up. So I do 3 little white balls to each of my mushrooms, but if you want to do more, that's up to you. I'm just going to roll out 9 little balls. Moving along, we're going to be working with our red from now on. So making the mushroom tops, you want to roll a ball and then you want to use your finger to apply that pressure down with your little red ball. And you can see here, in doing this, it creates a little divot for your mushroom base to sit into. Doing some last minute fiddling. Give your hands a good clean, and then we're going to be popping our mushrooms onto our bits of wire. So you can see I'm just inserting it through like this and popping that top on. Being careful not to go too far through, otherwise your wire will pop through the top. Awesome. Our garden gnomes and mushrooms are ready to be baked. So I'm just chucking them on a non-stick tray. You can use baking paper if you prefer. And my oven's a bit bodged, so I have it at 200, but I do recommend 180 generally. We're gonna start that off at 7 minutes. Let's see how they're cooking. So this is after 7 minutes. They're still a bit soft. The mushrooms, however, are a great deal smaller, so they're actually good to go. I'm gonna pull those out. We don't want those burning. But the gnomes, however, could do with a few minutes longer. So I'll pop them back in. Alright, so we'll come back a few minutes later, see how they're doing. And they are done. So they'll start to smoke like this when they're set and ready to go. And not only that, but, oh, that was almost a disaster. Not only that, but they'll also no longer be soft to the touch. So when you try and press it with your fingernail, they'll be set and good to go. Well done, guys. I hope you loved this tutorial and you made some cuties.